Okay, so welcome back. It's part 3 of our 72-hour plus survival kit that I carry. Again, to reiterate, right? This kit is designed as a kit that builds off of a 24-hour kit that my wife has to be thrown in a car so we can move out. So essentially, like, you call her up, say, "Hey, babe, you got to roll," right? So you can drag it into a car, and once she does, she can roll out. You have nothing else to worry about. Okay. That's what this kit's designed for. So no, it's not like staying home and survive the zombie apocalypse like a bear in hibernation. Okay, this is designed for offensive movement, and it all fits, right? This isn't the end-all be-all, but I'm sure you have your own suggestions. This worked great for me. So I'll ask you to follow along. All right, so what we essentially have here, these are MREs. Do you have to have MREs? No. What I know is that one MRE equals 1 day of food for one adult, okay? So that's one for sure. There's 14 here. I plussed them up a little bit once I had little girls. But the bottom line is the original theory was that this thing could sustain my wife and I for 4 days at 3 MREs a day, right? Which is, what's 4 times 3? 12, right? So at the end of the day, it's supposed to be able to allow us we were going to need 12 MREs to eat 3 MREs a day. It stands for 12 days. There's now 14. I estimate 14 MREs with a family of 4 can easily may make us last up to 8 days. Okay, it's just how it's going to work. So I have enough food to move out for at least 8 days. But everything here is designed to kind of allow me to facilitate the harvesting more food, right? Harvesting the resources of the area around me, right? So I live in SoCal, which is not exactly the best place to get stuff. So our first movement will be out of SoCal in order to start to live off resources instead of living off the raw sustainment products that we currently ever had. But again, I think 14 meals is enough so you can get to a point in time by driving off a certain amount of gasoline to get somewhere and establish yourself and still have food to sustain yourself for a good 4 to 5 days without having to worry about it. And that, to me, that's it, right? So essentially move out of disaster area, move out of earthquake zone, move out of flood zone, move out of blizzard zone, whatever it is, sustain yourself. Or have in your vehicle is stuck, I can sustain myself for long enough. And the government will tell you 3 days to a week, right, is what they ask you to be able to sustain yourself. That's what FEMA will ask you to do, right? This will sustain us for 3 days to a week, okay? And that's kind of the overall end state. Right? So that's what the food's for. Then we have a 5-quart, essentially like a water Camelback that's right here. I have various water bottles, just 4 little plastic water bottles that you'll see here. The reason that they're plastic is they fit inside of my kit and some of the other gear. They're easy to carry, right? So, and they're easy to refill, whatever you do. I recommend there's a lot more modern refillable water bottles that kind of collapse, and I'd recommend having those versus this. But these work fine. I also always recommend, and I actually pulled it out of this kit. I can't remember why it's not sitting here right now. But to tell you the truth, this is what you really need to have. You should always have a steel water bottle, no matter what. Now, we have one in our 24-hour kit, and I have one for this kit. It's just probably upstairs. But you need to have that because that's part of like your 3-stage survival solution, right? You're going to have your ability to harvest water through life straws, to boil water, and then to basically put in your iodine drops and make your water sanitary, right? So right here initially though has these 2 Nalgene bottles full of water along with those 4 water bottles, and then the first thing I would fill up before I move would be this 5 quart. So that gives you enough water to get off moving. Plus the water Ashley would bring along in her 24-hour survival kit, which is a full, as you see that the smart water bottle size, which is shy of a liter of water, and then this guy here, which is the same amount. So and then so you're moving out with enough water to basically sustain yourself for 3 days if you have to ration it, but with the ability to harvest more. Okay. I always carry these titanium sporks. I bought this off eBay a while back. I really like them. I used them in the field a bunch. It's called Light My Fire Titanium. They really work well. They're cool because they have a saw cutting edge on one side of the fork. The fork actually works to pick stuff up, and the spoon's wide and big. And titanium, things resistant. It'll survive anything. So, and it's always good to have durable tools. Then we move into our medical portion of things. Actually, I'm going to jump back for a second. So water. Why don't I carry more water, right? A lot of people ask that. Like, dude, you need gallons of water. Hey, just look right here, right? Normally along my wall is like water stacked like this high. I'm a firm believer in having water. Water is heavy, right? Pounds. So ounces equals pounds equal pain. It's a whole process, right? So the more water you carry, the less of other things you can carry, right? So it's essential that you find that balance. And this is my balance. Your balance might be different, right? This is my balance between food, water, and then equipment you need to harvest more of that, right? The essentials of living. And I would also recommend cash for that. But at the end of the day, right, this is my balance. You might be less offensive and more defensive and need more of a water supply. That's fine. But remember, it's heavier, right? So be able to carry it. Or hope your wife can move it into the back of your car. Because at the end of the day, if my wife can't lift this into the back of the car, then it's worthless to me. The whole kit's gone. So build it off of you and your family talking and preparing this, right? So this has been changed multiple times in order to account for the price of tea in China, okay, if you will. So let's get to our survival stuff. So I got a splint here, right? So Ashley's kit, right, her 24-hour kit, which we'll get into in the next episode, accounts for kind of like your bee stings, your cuts, your scrapes, your local trauma, right? Your goofballs that have, whatever's wrong with them, your headaches, all of that kind of stuff. This is designed for like sustainment, like, oh my gosh, I got a twig through my leg, or I got shot in the neck, whatever the hell it's going to be, right? So we have a splint, we have a Israeli bandage, which is kind of like what's going to be your immediate go-to for suppressing the bleeding after you put a tourniquet on, of course. But basically keeping things sanitary. It's a pressure dressing, essentially. If you know how to use one, great. If you don't, you need to Google that shit or go have a survival kit. You have just your regular ACE bandage, which can always come in handy. Okay, and then you've got your tourniquet, right? This is a cat tourniquet that the Army uses. There's a lot of other tourniquets out there that work well. You can use bandana stick for all I care. Have a tourniquet though, because this is like mass bleeding. Your ability to cut off that blood flow into the region, to isolate it, so you can essentially save somebody's life from bleeding out from some type of massive hemorrhage. So this is the one he's using in the Ranger Battalion. So it's got a bunch of different stuff in it. It's got your cat tourniquet. It's got combat gauze, which essentially you plug in a wound, right? You stick in there, and it's basically going to have it as a hemostatic agent that's going to flare up and stop it from bleeding. You have an Israeli bandage. It used to have, I'm sure it's got a nasal pharyngea and some other stuff in here in order to establish your breathing and all that. Bottom line is, stop bleeding, establish your breathing. It's got some 550 cord, because who doesn't need 550 cord? And then it's got some Zantac, because I drink and I dip too much, so I need Zantac in order to maintain that kind of heartburn scenario. All right, but yeah, here's like your, this is for a needle decompression for your chest, in case you have some type of a sucking chest wound, which is if you don't know how to use this stuff, then don't get it, okay? It doesn't help. None of this helps you if you don't know how to use it. I'm trying to establish a baseline for what you should have, and then if I were you, I'd go out and figure out how exactly to use it. And then you have your basically, I'm not saying surgical knife, but I'm saying something that is going to be sharp enough where it's going to be able to cut through tissue with some serious precision, right? So that's this guy. You have your trauma shears, right? Cutting clothing, cutting everything, cutting pennies, cutting whatever you need to cut. Right, Bella? Yeah. Boom. Yeah. Certified. Headlamp, right? I would have multiple. I have one here right now. Normally there's a second one that's usually in there. A $10 one, $15 one, doesn't matter. If you plan on hiding out for people, then get one that has got, the low visibility shields, red light and all that on there. If not, buy the 3 for $10 at Lowe's, right? But these things are essential because you're going to be moving, right? And you need light, okay? Because you need light. You will not understand how much you want light until you don't have light, which plays into batteries. Have the batteries, okay? Good batteries, not Walmart batteries. Like, get good batteries and get good lights, at least lights that are going to sustain themselves, because you don't miss light until you don't have it. And then you're like, holy shit, I need light. All right. Now, I'd always recommend having some type of candle, okay? I like these teacup candles because they're small, but they melt in extreme heat, so that kind of sucks. I mean, extreme heat, like 95-degree California weather, they'll start melting. But they're nice to have because if you have kindling that's not actually dry, then you can actually light a candle, right? And you can put it underneath kindling that's still kind of drying out. And at that point, it'll dry out the kindling, and you can create your own kind of campfire and everything you need. So really in a wet climate, if you have a candle, it gives you the ability to make your own fire, a sustainable fire, right? So I'd always recommend having tea candles, and matches are okay, but bottom line, have a lighter, you know, have flint and steel, but have a lighter, okay? Have a lighter. Survival straws. So these things, they came out a few years ago. They're really cool. They're called the Life straws. We have one of them that's opened up actually in Ashley's kit. So let's grab that real quick. So these Life straws are you essentially put it into the water and you sip from this end. So you pop the end off on one side, right? Then this side right here. Bam! You just drink, right? So it's kind of cool. It's simple, it's easy, it's sustainable. Now, always have a steel container. I usually have a steel coffee mug in here too. I think I pulled it out to drink some Jack Daniels out or something a little while ago. I'll go back in there. But always have a steel container so you can boil water if needed, right? It's going to allow you to kind of access more to different types of water, like salt water, all that. But a life straw is essential. So they usually have a lifespan to them. Usually, here you go, removes 99.999% of water bacteria. 1,000 liters of water, 264 gallons. So it's going to last you a while, but not forever, right? What we have here will last us forever if we need to. There's other devices, but again, weight, right? So it all costs weight. No one's trying to survive, to the end of the world on this. We're just trying to have the ingredients that we need to survive for an extended period of time. All right, and then, so we get to our last thing here. This is kind of like my, we'll just call it my pharmacy. Now, I don't think that you need, everything in the world, but I would recommend having something that's like a, like here, severe antibiotics, right? So Ash and I essentially, over the course of our lifetime, have had enough diseases or whatever's wrong with us. We've accumulated prescriptions. There's everything from Percocets to naproxen to doxycycline, right? Which if you've been deployed, you know what that is. So there's a bunch of different stuff in here, right? To soap, whatever else you might need to have for hygiene, right? The goal of this little kit here is basically the necessary medications in case you are isolated alone in a dirty environment to try and sustain yourself. So whatever you need for pain relievers and antibiotics and just general headaches, all that kind of stuff I have inside this kit, as well as some sanitary stuff like wipes, and then you're always going to need some suntan lotion of some type, something to protect you from the elements, as well as some insect repellent. And then, of course, a towel. This is one of those micro towels. They're actually really cool. They sell them at a lot of PXs, which is the post exchanges they have on their army installations. I don't know why I don't sell them other places. They're actually really nice towels that dry super quick and absorb a ton of water off you. It's like a sham wow before the guy beat up the hookers. So then we have this right here as the final thing. I would call this pretty vital to your overall survival. This is just a deck of cards, okay? So anybody who's spent considerable time being bored, which is probably 99% of America, understands you need something to do. And when you're sitting in a situation where you're fleeing and you're on the move, it might be cool to have something to do, right? So instead of playing tiddlywinks, I recommend always have a deck of cards, because it's paid off for me in every scenario I've ever been in throughout my life, is to have a deck of cards, to play spades, play euchre, play whatever it is, play go fish with the little ones. Something that's going to be able to keep people entertained, because there's no better medicine than keep people's minds off the current problems. So, boom. With that concludes our third section, which is the overall health portion of this, and we'll move to 24-hour section.